Arven is one of the characters introduced in Pokémon Scarlet and Pokémon Violet, and without a doubt one of, if not the most important character in the whole game. Besides us, we're pretty important too, as always. From its storyline in the Path of Legends with Mabosstiff and the Herba Mystica to the storyline in The Way Home with the AI professor and the death of his parent, Arven gave Pokémon Scarlet and Pokémon Violet a wonderful shine. In the end, he even raises the question about the Paradox Pokémon making no sense, which is true, they don't. But there's also one thing that simply doesn't make sense to me when it comes to him. So hey, I'm not so Ace-Trainer, and what about Arven? Let's get into it. In order for you to understand what kickstarted all of this crazy stuff you're about to hear and watch, we have to take a look at the timeline of Pokémon Scarlet and Pokémon Violet, more specifically the events that directly connect to Area Zero and the Terra Energy. As we've established before, the Time Machine and the first Paradox Pokémon, all of that happened before Arven was born, likely when Turo in Scarlet and Sada in Violet were still part of the Professor's team. The evidence for this is in the journals, since they mention I was expecting a new life to treasure, but what fortune to be blessed with this gift as well. The new life to treasure would very likely be Arven, and the gift would be our Koraidon/Miraidon, the first Pokémon to be brought through the supposed Time Machine. I think this part is self-explanatory. The professor was able to harness the power of the Terra Crystals before Arven was born, because that would 100% be needed for something as powerful as that machine to work. And so, what about the Terra Orb? According to what Ryford tells us in history class, the Terra Orb was invented about 10 years before the events of the game. And I'm assuming that about 10 years means that it might just be a tiny bit less months or more months, since everything else is pretty well dated. This would mean that what made the funding possible for the professor to return to Area Zero was only obtained around 10 years ago. So I'm assuming the supposed time machine wasn't invented before the Terra Orb, which would make sense in my opinion, since one simply uses the Terra Crystals to achieve the terrestrial phenomenon, something that was previously known to exist since 140 years in the past, while terrestrialized Pokémon were found in the crater, while the other enters uncharted waters by trying something completely new. So the professor studied in Area Zero using the labs that were built 80 years before the events of the game, likely with Clavel since we know they worked together, and the opposing professor, and maybe even Jack as well, since we know he worked with Clavel too. This had to happen because the professor had to have access to the Terra Crystals before inventing the Terra Orb. Then, for some reason, they stopped the research, maybe due to lack of results, and the professor invented the Terra Orb in order to get funding and move into the Lighthouse Lab, maybe still with the other professor's help, and this happened 10 years before the events of the games. Eventually, the professor received approval and was able to return to the crater and get the time machine research done in order for the first Paradox Pokémon to be brought to Paldea. This was done likely only between the professors, since Clavel in the beginning of the game is completely unaware that this happened. So if this is the timeline, which actually coincides with the order of the journals as you descend down Area Zero, Arven was only born around 10 years before the events of the game. I don't know about you, but when I look at Arven, I don't see his design being meant to allude to a 10-year-old. In fact, the website mentions that he is our upperclassman, which doesn't really help his case. So this might be just a big misunderstanding on my part of the timeline, but, well, I am about to go full-on tinfoil hat on this thing. So Arven is likely the son of Turo and Sada in both the Scarlet and Violet realities, we've established that. How those realities play into each other, I don't know, but there has to be a connection somehow, especially because of the existence of both future and past Paradox in both games, with respective knowledge about each, be it research in their respective games or simply occult level flavor text in the opposing one. And those Paradox Pokémon, they are a mystery as well. They were there in the past, but they were brought from a time machine, and Arven raises this question himself. And there's also no mention or evidence of them outside of the crater apart from the one that escaped. And this, considering the fossil history of the Pokémon world, is very strange. Sure, we do have fossil Pokémon alive and well in the Crown Tundra, but those Pokémon aren't unknown. They are Pokémon that were studied in the past in various regions of the Pokémon world. The Paradox Pokémon are just both false and real. They exist in the crater, but they also don't seem to exist in history. At least the past Paradox, and if those don't exist, well, the future ones don't as well. They're just there because, in my opinion, and a lot of other people's opinions, they are someone's dream or imagination. This is nothing new, and I have a video I made a while ago explaining the topic, but the game is about finding your treasure, and the reason why both Heath and the professor found the same treasure is exactly that. Heath found them because he and his team believed things like that could be hidden down there, and the professor was obsessed with the book, so their treasure, their dream, was to find the same thing. Dreams coming to life, imagination turned reality, and then finding your treasure, supposedly impossible things happening, and then a likely 10-year-old child being our upperclassman and also being clearly the centerpiece that connects us to Area Zero, the most important part of this game. What if Arven is a treasure as well? It sounds crazy, but hear me out. If dreams are becoming reality, if the manifestation of one's wishes is coming from some strange power within the creator, if it can optimize machinery and change organic matter as well, maybe to the point of actually creating Pokémon, could Arven be the result of this power as well, or simply have been affected by it? We know he was a child at some point, we have pictures to prove it, but what if he was affected by the power of the gems somehow? His mother was 100% in constant contact with the gems when she was expecting him, and I'm sure that he was also in contact with them. Could Arven also be optimized? Could he be the manifestation of both professors' dreams as well? And also, there is one other strange thing that's really bothering me. Arven tells us that one day his mother/father came home with Koraidon/Miraidon, which is strange. Arven supposedly was only born after the legendary was here, and if the father in Scarlet and mother in Violet left shortly after the boy was born, I can't see baby Arven staying at home alone, and there's also no information about someone taking care of him. So I don't know, it just feels strange that he only saw the legendary when his mother/father brought him back home eventually, especially considering how close the legendary seemed to be with the professor. And things get a little more strange when he talks about the AI. Arven knew the AI existed. It is, without a doubt, something more recent, and he hadn't seen his parent for ages. And he also knew what being contacted by it meant. He knew it meant something bad was happening. What I mean is that, despite not knowing the origins of the Paradox Pokémon, Arven seems a lot more invested in what's happening down in Area Zero than it originally seems. First it felt like it was just about healing Mabostif, but it seems that there is a lot more going on. He knows a lot more. At this point, I wouldn't be surprised if the reason why the opposing parent left, which is incredibly strange, is not only because of how the turtles are being used, check this video out to better understand it, but also because the boy isn't just a normal boy. The other parent completely disappearing is something that has been bugging me since I found out about it in Area Zero, because it is a strange road for Pokemon. Usually the father is just not there, or simply running a gym in Petalburg City. Here things are completely different, and it will play out into the story for sure. And if that power, the Terra power, can create the life of a Pokemon, why can't it also create the life of a human? Could Arven be both professors' perfect creation? And that is all I have for you today. The timeline is messed up and Arven doesn't fit into that messed up timeline, so I had to find a crazy theory to go along with it. But what about you? Do you think I just misread the timeline, or do you also see what I'm talking about? Let me know in the comments down below. And now, like the video if you like it, dislike if you don't, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more Pokemon content, and also ring the bell so you know when the next video is out. You can follow me on social media and Twitch. I'm there Wednesday to Sunday, not Saturday, or join our Discord. All the links are in the description. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all on the next one.